The Calgary Police Service can confirm a man was taken into custody last night at a residence in the 6600 block of Ranch View Drive Northwest in relation to a weekend shooting. This man is one of three individuals released earlier yesterday. He is facing one charge of reckless use of a firearm. His role in Saturday's shooting is continuing to be investigated as it relates specifically to the death of Natasha Farrah. A second man who was arrested earlier this week remains in custody on a Toronto-based Canada-wide warrant for attempted murder. A search warrant was executed at the property where the man was arrested last night. At this time, we are not looking for any additional suspects. Investigators continue to ask witnesses to come forward. Anyone with information is asked to call police at 403-266-1234 or Crime Stoppers. Thank you. I'll take your questions now.
So is he the alleged gunman then?
He is one of the alleged gunmen, correct.
So how many firearms were involved? Have you been able to sort that out?
We've established that there was more than one shooter, and so the investigation is continuing in that regard.
What sort of charges does he face down the road?
So that will depend on the evidence that's gathered between at this point and what evidence is gathered in the ensuing investigation in the coming weeks. We're working closely with the Crown Prosecutor's Office, and it'll be based on what evidence is gathered.
Right now, does it look like they were just fooling around, or was something where they, what does it look like? Like is it gang related? Or?
So once again, we don't believe this is any ties to any gang activity. Believe it to be a random shooting at a very highly populated area in our entertainment district downtown. And we don't believe the victim, Ms. Farrah, was targeted in the attack.
Is there any belief that there was an intent to kill or injure in the shooting?
We haven't identified any targets that were in the vicinity or around Ms. Farrah. What the intention of the gunmen were, we're still trying to establish. But at this time, we haven't been able to nail down a motive.
The four men that you interviewed, did they know each other? Did they know, were they working together at this night? Were there some history among them?
I can confirm for you that the four persons of interest that were initially arrested and interviewed regarding this offense are associates and didn't know each other.
So if there was multiple shooters, why is there only one person charged for this one?
The investigation is ongoing because of the fact that there was more than one shooter complicates the matter. But what I can tell you is that the investigation is ongoing, and we are currently awaiting results of both forensics and ballistics at the crime lab that will assist us in determining what further evidence we have in order to lay further charges down the road.
Any concern that the two men currently not in custody may disappear in town, not from Calgary?
We have two people in custody. The first person is the gentleman from Toronto that's wanted on the Canada-wide warrant for attempted murder. He is going to be, he's remanded in custody and being shipped back to the Toronto area to face those charges. So is there any flight risk on him? There's not. The second person in custody, we've determined has been in the Calgary area for approximately just under a year and resides here in the city, originally from Toronto, not cooperating with investigators, so we're unable to determine exact time frame as to how long he's been in the city.
The other two that were taken into custody, are they now considered not suspects at all?
We've ruled the other two persons of interest that we initially arrested as not being our shooters.
And what's the relationship between this latest individual who was arrested and the other group?
Sorry, sir, could you specify, please?
While you have this latest arrest
Mm-hmm.
and his relationship to these other individuals?
The other individuals that were initially arrested as persons of interest?
Yes.
So again, they are associates and friends and known to each other.
Can you comment on, the releasing of this individual and then the arrest? What transpired between those hours?
We initially arrested 4 persons of interest, one of which is the individual that we rearrested in the early morning hours of today. What changed essentially was this. We were able to identify the suspect that we arrested today as being one of the shooters at the scene in the early morning hours of Saturday, August 23rd at 11th Avenue and 1 Street Southwest. Initially, we didn't have that evidence or information. Now we do. And so as such, in consultation with the Crown Prosecutor's Office, we were able to lay a charge under Section 244 of the Criminal Code in relation to reckless discharge of a firearm.
Will those charges be upgraded?
Once again, it will be based on the gathering. The investigation is ongoing. And based upon the evidence gathered, both from witnesses and, as I said, forensics and ballistics reports that we are currently waiting for, it's a good possibility that charges may be upgraded at a later date.
Are you able to touch upon how many shells that were released between one or more guns?
Sure, I can't give you a definitive number, but what I can tell you is that there were multiple shots at the scene. And that's all the detail I can give you in relation to that.
You can't say how big an area it was?
All I can tell you is that there were multiple shots discharged at the scene.
Can you tell us, you mentioned that you didn't have the evidence, but now you do have the evidence. What that evidence is, can you share that with us?
What I can share is that the evidence was gathered through further statements from eyewitnesses at the scene that were able to identify the person that we have in custody. Secondly, CCTV footage played a major role in helping to identify the person that we now have in custody as putting him at the scene. And that CCTV coverage was obtained both at the scene and other areas of the city after the shooting.
Would it be fair to assume now that you have 2 shooters, and were they shooting at each other? Is it the case?
We have confirmed that they were not shooting at each other. They are friends. And that they were shooting into a crowd of people, at which time the innocent victim was struck with a bullet.
The man wanted in Toronto. Is there going to be future, or is there contemplated to be future charges against him in Calgary in connection with this?
We're going to continue to investigate the gentleman that's wanted on the Canada-wide warrant and being shipped back to Toronto. He is one of our prime suspects for this shooting, and we will continue to investigate that and gather as much evidence as we can. Given the fact that he's going back to Toronto isn't going to deter us from investigating his role in this shooting.
And the gentleman you charged with the careless use, is that, do we have a picture of him? Is he the guy with the medallion that you were looking for initially?
So what I'll be able to tell you is that you will have the identity of this person later on today or into the early morning hours. As soon as he appears before a justice of the peace, you'll have his full identity,
And photos of all
just his identity.
Now, why has anyone been charged yet in relation to the death of Natasha Farrah?
Because the investigation is ongoing, because of the fact that there was more than one firearm discharged at the scene, makes it a very complex and complicated investigation. And so as such, we're going through the evidence And we're asking that for your patience in that, because we want to make sure we get it right. And we want to do the job 100% proper before we're in a position, as well in consultation with the Crown Prosecutor's Office, before we lay any further charges that aren't supported by the evidence.
You said that CCTV has been up, so how much of the actual incident was captured on video?
We have a very good portion of the incident that was captured on video, and which has allowed us to piece together exactly what happened at the scene.
So wouldn't that, with all due respect, wouldn't that speed things up in a sense in terms of laying some more serious charges?
It's been very instrumental, and we'll continue to review CCTV footage in order to move the investigation forward.
What was his connection to the residents in the ranch lands?
We believe that the suspect had been residing at this residence for a period of time. We can't provide you a time frame, but we believe that he was residing there.
Sorry, I did want to just follow up from, just on the Volkswagen Jetta, was that an Ontario registered vehicle or was that an Alberta car?
The crime, you're referring to the crime vehicle? That crime vehicle was Alberta registered.
Just wanted to double check. Is it believed there are two shooters, or are we just saying there's more than one shooter?
We're still exploring the possibility that we know for sure there's more than one. The investigation's ongoing, but we have determined there is a minimum of 2 shooters at this point.
Maybe
Mhm.
one or two. And believed to be in the same vehicle at the time?
Correct.
Sorry, and is there anything that leads you to suspect that the victim in any way had any connection with these people, knew them, even casually?
I'll be very clear on this. There was no connection at all between the victim and the shooters. They were unknown to each other. She was simply an innocent bystander who was standing in front of an establishment when she was gunned down by a senseless and reckless act of violence.